How you doing, Michael?
I'm good, thanks. Good to be back in LA a year after finishing the movie and, showing it to an audience.
I know, right? It's been 2 years since people have really been able to do that, so that's a blessing for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Good timing.
So I want to talk to you about this technique that you use throughout this film. It's a lot of extreme close-ups, especially that opening sequence where you have those insects eating. And let me tell you something, you have me in a nightmare state now because I will never be able to look at a fly or bee ever again without thinking about how it penetrates the skin. How did you work with your DP on getting those shots? Because they were gorgeous.
We used a lot of different approaches. Some of it was practical. We had a special wildlife crew shooting real insects, and we thought we could do it in a studio in a couple of hours. And we realized insects don't tend to do what you want them to do when you're shooting. They're not the best performers, so you really need a dedicated crew to spend 3 days just to get a few shots. So we had that approach, and then I also worked with the VFX department to create, some of the sequences that happen inside the human body, because of course you can't shoot that for real. And that was a long journey. We went down a lot of creative routes to find the right approach, and we really wanted it to feel photographically authentic and tactile and visceral. And there's a lot of VFX I see in movies where it just feels very synthetic and you don't buy it. And we wanted to work with, yeah, shadows and dimensionality and texture to really put the audience inside that human body. And we thought it was an exciting thing to do really early in the movie.
It was very captivating and it was exciting to watch. So thank you so very much for that. This film, we're dealing with insect invaders, and in real life, we're dealing with a different type of invader that we can't see called COVID. Do you think that this film is straddling the line a little bit, or has a lot in common with, I should say, our current state of COVID paranoia and government mistrust?
Yeah, it's not something that we predicted when we were writing the project. I mean, Joe Barton, the original screenwriter, I think he wrote the first draft 10 years ago. And so it was just one of those uncanny things that we were making the film October, November last year, and there were so many resonances with the real world. It was, of course, we had this invisible threat that was infecting the population. There's rampant, conspiracy theories. There's distrust, with the government, but also from one fellow American to another. It felt like, we were on the brink of apocalypse at that time last year. There was heat waves, forest fires, civil unrest. And a lot of that was part of the fabric and texture of the movie. And so we just tried to embrace that as, the canvas we were telling this father-son portrait on. And we didn't, in some ways, we didn't need to overemphasize it beyond what it was. We didn't want to be too on the nose or make too many references to COVID. We thought a smart audience can read a lot into it.
Yeah,
So
I would be one of those smart audience members. And I know that you had Octavia is a dear friend, and I know that you had her in mind when creating this project. What was it about her abilities that made you want to create a project for her?
I think it's because where that character comes into the story, it's around the 40-minute mark. And you've been introduced to many of the other lead characters by that point. So she was coming in later, but you needed to very quickly identify with her on screen. And I think Octavia's just got a very unique, empathetic presence. She walks into a scene and you connect. And it meant that I had a shorthand with an audience to align them with her character, because she's got a much more compassionate reading of what Malika's going through than some of the other characters in the movie. And I wanted the audience to be, rooting for her. And if I had a character, you can get some great, actors that are just, they're interesting, but they're a bit colder on screen. Whereas she just, she emanates a warmth that character needed. And so that was part of the reason. And also she always brings layers of complexity to a role that maybe isn't always on the written page. And she just brings a lot of humanity to her part. So there's a combination of all of those things.
Well, you brought layers of complexities to encounter, and I was glad for it. It really makes you sit back and think about a lot of things after you see it. So thank you for that.
Oh,
And
thank
thank
you.
you for your time today. I appreciate you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.